The YouTube superstar who has recently, as you know, came under fire.
I've made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment.
I'm so sorry to anyone that I offended, anyone I upset.
But I wanted to sit down and make a video addressing everything that's going on right now, because they owe everybody an explanation.
Now, not only is he losing followers, he is also potentially losing millions of dollars.
A lot of stuff has been written in the press over the last few days.
This is not an article, it was an attack towards me. It was an attack by the media to try and decrease my influence and my economic worth.
I'm ashamed of myself, I'm disappointed in myself, and I promise to be better. I will be better. Thank you.
That's all I had to say. Thank you for watching. Bye.
The vast world of social media has evolved immensely over the last 15 years, exceeding its own expectations set by the likes of MySpace, which simply served as a basic messaging and status update website to stay in touch with your friends. But now we have YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and the ever-rising TikTok dominating the internet, acting as business tools that offer a worldwide connection between people. Social media is now the primary provider of news, entertainment, and politics throughout the world, and is a technology that is still evolving to this day. These platforms have given people careers, success, and allowed talented individuals to shine, but they can also have a dark side, with things like cancel culture and public drama being common occurrences these days. But I will summarise it by saying, anything you put on the internet will be on the internet forever. This is the tweet and the damage done. Let me introduce you to Jack Maynard. Jack is a 25-year-old British YouTuber who makes a living out of posting YouTube videos, boasting an audience of 1.5 million subscribers. His content ranges from pranks to comedy sketches, and he also writes music.
Good morning, everybody. Hello and welcome to another vlog. This is great. I've started off in a car.
Vlogs, Jack.
I know. Well, no, I'm actually not. That's a lie. No. I haven't vlogged in like over a week. But hey, we're here.
In 2017, due to his internet success, Jack was offered a place on the ITV programme I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. If you are not familiar with the show, taking place every November, hosts Ant and Dec watch over 12 celebrities who've entered into an Australian jungle, where they are forced to camp for 3 weeks, taking part in daily challenges to win food. It's an extremely popular show in the UK, averaging 10 million viewers per episode during the latest series. Jack entered the show alongside celebrities like Amir Khan, Rebecca Vardy and Dennis Wise, but was initially met with criticism online as traditional viewers didn't deem him a celebrity.
I'm Jack Maynard, and I guess you could call me a YouTube sensation. I basically make YouTube videos for my job. That's about it. Well, what I'm going to miss the most is obviously a lot of my job is on. My life is social media, so not being in control of any of that whatsoever is what I'm going to miss most. I'm scared of spiders, rats, snakes. Scared of being underwater for too long, scared of really tight spaces, not a fan of heights. When I think of bushwhacker trials, I think a tear falls from my eye.
However, he would win over his critics on the first 2 episodes of the series with his charming and comedic attitude, and also showing signs of romance with fellow campmate Georgia Tofolo.
Oh, we got a free camp. It's just you and me, Jack. Woo!
Lucky me.
A little bit of morning music wouldn't go amiss.
Yeah.
Do you know, like a bit of ABBA?
No, not ABBA.
Obviously, Jack and I are of a similar age, so it's actually quite comforting to have each other in here.
As he won over the public, Jack still had his doubters, with one being New Zealand journalist Dan Wootton, who works for The Sun newspaper. On the 22nd of November 2017, 2 days into the I'm a Celebrity series, Wootton published an article on The Sun's website entitled "I'm a Celebrity Star, Jack Maynard's homophobic tweets are totally unacceptable. I learned as a gay kid how much damage those words can do." The article brought to light tweets posted by Jack Maynard between 2011 and 2013 that Wootton had uncovered. They contained multiple racial, homophobic and derogatory terms and overall disgusting material. This sent a shockwave through the fan bases of Jack himself and the I'm a Celebrity audience, and on the following night's show, Ant and Dec announced that Jack had left the show due to personal and private reasoning. He would be flying back to England. He was home 5 days after his I'm a Celebrity journey began. Jack's fanbase instantly jumped to his defence and set their sights on Wooten, blasting out claims that Jack was only 16 when he sent the tweets, that he wasn't famous when he sent them, and he has changed as a person since then. Wooten backed up his article with tweets of his own, stating that he doesn't have anything personal against Jack, but as a gay man himself, he found his words vigorously offensive.
Just kind of remind us as to why this little fella is now no longer in the jungle.
So we spoke about this on Monday's show, didn't we? He goes in the jungle, and at that point, and only at that point, by the way, myself and other journalists become aware of a whole load of tweets that he has sent many years before as a teenager, some of which use the N-word, some of which use homophobic slurs, including the F-word, which I don't want to use this morning, and also another horrible word used to describe disabled people. And at that point, obviously, there become more and more stories. People are looking into his past, other rumours about what's going on and that sort of thing. And so last night, mutually, the decision is made by ITV and his representatives that they need to get him out. Partly, I think, because he doesn't know all of this is going on, but also partly because of the controversy around it. There's a couple of things I want to say about this, because I've obviously received a lot of abuse from his friends and fans on Twitter over the last 24 hours. I think there's a huge irony in that, you know, bullying tweets about bullying tweets.
From a journalist's perspective, he found newsworthy content of someone who was of public interest at the time, and he reported it. He did his job, added a personal perspective, and went on his way. But the abuse that Jack received and the damage that was done to his career because of that original article make the whole situation severely more complicated. It can be simplified down to the internet took Jack's side, seeming to all agree that everyone posts stupid things when nobody is watching you, and Jack simply made mistakes, as we all do. But the general public, not familiar with online personalities, and then the journalists, now saw Jack as the enemy. Jack made an apology video, which he posted to his YouTube channel the day after he landed back in the UK, to address the situation and ask for forgiveness.
I don't know. As I'm sure you can already tell, I'm back in London. I have left the jungle in Australia, which is where I was before this. To be honest, I just want to start off with that I'm sorry. I'm just really, really sorry. I'm sure a lot of you and most of you have seen that a lot of stuff has been written in the press over the last few days. So I thought the least you deserved was for me to come home and just talk and just sit down and talk to you and explain everything that has been going on. I'm so sorry to anyone that I offended, anyone I upset, anyone I made feel uncomfortable.
But there's one standout article that was published, which begins to show a rift between journalists and influencers. A journalist by the name of Michael Hogan, who writes for The Telegraph, posted an article on The Telegraph's website the night following the Dan Wooten article, entitled "Jack Maynard's I'm a Celebrity exit proves Britain's idiot YouTube stars are not ready for prime time." He begins the article by writing, and I quote, "You might not know who Jack Maynard is. Frankly, I don't blame you. But he just became marginally more interesting. The gammon-faced 22-year-old who goes by the dreaded job title of YouTuber has fled from reality contest I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here after a string of racist and homophobic tweets came to light while he was busy bush-tuckering. He suddenly quit the ITV series on Tuesday night after a mere 2-day stint so he could defend himself, which seems to involve the grovelling excuse that he was a huge 4 years younger at the time and sent the tweets in response to a neighbour who was bullying him. Right, he also later deleted them. Oh, that's okay then." End quote. This whole article comes across as very passive-aggressive, and at times gives Jack more abuse, such as the gammon-faced insult, which is a British term that, according to the internet, is known as a term to describe middle-aged white men who supported Brexit, and the term refers in particular to the colour of such a person's flushed face, especially when expressing their strong opinions. But the online fandom of an influencer shouldn't be underestimated, as before the night was out, Michael Hogan's name was circling Twitter for all the wrong reasons, as someone had gone out and discovered unflattering tweets of his from once upon a time. One that read in a response to a female, "I have nipples, won't you milk me?" posted on the 29th of December 2010. I suppose on the internet, no one really wins. Now, to discuss this topic of rivalry between journalists and online personalities more, I got in contact with an Irish YouTuber by the name of Dara Ta to gain an insight on all of this from a content creator's perspective.
So I'm Dara Ta. I am a YouTuber with like 24,000 subscribers, I think, at the moment. I make loads of different videos. They're usually kind of vlogs, and they tend to be kind of crazy. I kind of do big stunts mostly, and I have done some commentary on different things happening in the media where I might talk about it.
As a content creator, seeing situations like a few years ago when we had the whole Logan Paul being in the Japanese forest situation, if you remember that, and other situations like with James Charles a year ago being cancelled, we'll get onto that, and the Jack Maynard I'm a Celebrity situation. Do events like these interest you at all? Or do they maybe even serve as a guide as to how not to lose your audience?
Oh, they definitely interest me. Like, I mean, I hate the whole cancellation culture.
Yeah.
And I think the whole mob mentality on internet is so annoying and very often hyper judgmental to the point that, like, you know, what they're kind of going against is really nothing at all. I think they can turn like non-issues into big issues as well. Actually, I have a friend of mine who was like the latest person to be cancelled.
Really?
like a friend of mine has just been the latest punching bag
just
of
been
the
cancelled
internet for the last like 3 weeks. His name is Thomas Petru, and like he's such a nice, genuine guy, and I've met him in real life and everything. And I would consider him a friend, and like the internet has portrayed this guy as just being a greedy, so manipulative of children and all this stuff, and it's just so weird because I know the guy and I know he's just like, he's actually kind of nice, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think if something starts rolling, if something can look particularly bad, if you can phrase something in a way that just sounds horrible, and if the person if it's kind of at the right time in the right place, or maybe at the wrong time in the wrong place for someone, it'll just happen. The sharing of negative information is rampant on the internet.
So with situations like that put, for example, YouTube in a negative light, like cancel culture and all those things, what personally motivated you to enter into that world and start creating videos and your own content? Or who inspired you?
I've just simply always been making videos.
Okay.
Like ever since I was a kid, I was making videos, so I knew I liked making videos. I never really knew that I wanted to like try and gather an audience from making videos until like a couple of years ago. So I just enjoyed making videos to make people laugh. And then it was only until like I saw vloggers such as Casey Neistat. It was kind of the Casey Neistat era that kind of piqued my interest and made me go, whoa, you can still be a one-man show and create really entertaining content. Like I understand now how important it could be to try and build an audience. So from there on, I tried to, you know, incorporate what I was doing before, which is making funny videos, but now completely create them by myself and actively try and grow an audience along with that. Now, obviously, my aim as well to do it was so that I could have a full-time job for making videos and to entertain people. Like I have my own videography business and production business.
Okay.
So that's how I make my money. And then that I guess allows me to have like all the equipment for my YouTube videos and allows me connections in terms of like if I'm paying someone to edit something or do stuff, I'll also have them slot into a YouTube shoot or something. So I pay shooters to shoot my commercial stuff, but I might also pay them to help me shoot a YouTube video.
Why do you think, as a content creator yourself, that the modern media has a problem with the, let's say, YouTube celebrity? Do you have an opinion on that?
So I think for the most part is because it's a good headline. I think the public who may not watch YouTube or understand the social media side, I think they're definitely interested in what's going on there, and they particularly like to hear the kind of gossip and how it's being misused, because there's been so many times in the past when what you call influencers have misused their influence. I guess it's just because it's something new. I think it gets a lot of clicks and it's popular. So the journalists are shown a world that is kind of hidden to, let's say, the general public. And the general public would only assume that only kids watch it. And so when you're talking about like this world that's only viewed by kids, then you just automatically assume there's some nefarious stuff going on. And so when journalists shine a light to anything nefarious, or in fact completely fine, but able to phrase it in a way that's kind of pretty bad and possibly slanderous, then it just, I assume it just does well. So I think that's why there's that issue, there's that rift. It's that probably performs really well because the majority of the public don't really know what's going on, and it can be painted in whatever light they want.
Have you ever been cautious about what you post online, whether that be a simple comment or a picture or a video that maybe contained a joke that might offend somebody, but you thought was worthy of putting out?
Yeah. No, like I would always be somewhat cautious. I think I was actually probably more cautious at the beginning, in that I thought everyone would get offended by everything, and then slowly maybe loosened up that cautionary feeling and realized that you can kind of, you're allowed to make jokes. That's how I think of it. Like, you are simply allowed to make jokes. I do think about what I put out, but at the same time, I do actively try not to think about it as much as possible.
Yeah, so that might limit what you put out.
Yeah, limit what you put out, but also, I guess the weird thing about, let's say, content is the more worried you are about people and their opinions, the worse your content is, the worse it comes across. So, like, obviously content creators are in this sort of weird situation where they're probably wary, as I said I have been, of how people take what they say, how people could use what they say or what they do and portray it in a real negative light. But on the other hand, if they censor themselves, or if they take into consideration too much, like how people might be like triggered or whatever, then their content loses authenticity. And like the biggest thing on YouTube is, and like all this content creation is like the more authentic you are, the more of a real person you are.
Yeah.
I kind of think we're moving away from a little bit that sort of snowflakey type thing that was happening a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I think we've moved beyond that. Maybe that was sort of 2018, where there was like everyone just getting triggered at everything, that you just couldn't do anything. We've definitely moved beyond that, but at the same time, cancel culture is still there. It'll never go away. Everyone likes a punch it back.
So, Dar, to finish up, would you like to give us a hint into what your next video will be?
I've got one ready to go that I've been shooting since December.
Oh, wow.
Which is this
big
completely a whole other one. Do you know what a TENS machine is? One of these things that electrocutes
on your muscles, isn't it?
Yeah. So I used one of those at this, like, trying to go at the strongest setting I possibly could for, like, on my abs for 30 days in a row to, like, see if I could get a six-pack.
Okay, that's pretty good.
I'm actually very happy with the video. I think it's actually really funny because it's just like constant of me screaming almost like the whole video.
That's
like
really good.
Torturing yourself for 30 days to see if you could just get a six-pack.
So, with that was Dara Ta. Thank you very much for the interview.
Yeah, no worries, Max. No worries.
Exposure of vulgar material or private information is nothing new for the media. It's a massive aspect of that business. Just now it's discovering old tweets, but in a not so distant past it was phone and computer hacking. To simplify, events that involve a celebrity's private information being leaked by journalists was, is, and always will be commonplace. But there's a potential solution to problems like these that never seems to find its way into the public eye. The right to be forgotten. The General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, is a regulation in EU law on data protection and privacy in the European Union and the European Economic Area. Their purpose is to provide a set of standardised data protection laws across all of the member countries. They offer the right, known as the right to be forgotten or the right to erasure, for individuals to have personal or negative information concerning them be removed from internet searches and other directories.
Let's talk about something else. The internet. In Europe this week, there was some potentially significant news.
It is said the internet never forgets. Until now, that is. In a huge ruling, the highest court in Europe ruled that Google and other search operators like it must delete search results if they are requested. They're calling it the right to be forgotten.
The right to be forgotten. What the ruling amounts to is that if there's something embarrassing on the internet about you, then EU citizens can now ask Google to take down any links to it. Maybe this new ruling, though, addresses a genuine problem. The internet has an unforgiving memory, and it can ruin people's lives. So if all the ruling does is let people take down links to minor indiscretions from their past, it's probably fine.
It has strict rules, but an individual can exercise their right to be forgotten if the personal data is no longer necessary for the purpose an organisation originally collected or processed it for, if an organisation is processing personal data for direct marketing purposes and the individual objects to this processing, or if an organisation has processed an individual's personal data unlawfully. The right to be forgotten cannot be exercised if the data, let's say tweets for example, are being used to exercise the right of freedom of expression and information, or if the data is being used to perform a task that is being carried out in public interest. It's a very interesting take that could potentially stop situations like Jack Maynard's from happening again if it was handled correctly and with preparation. But what would a journalist's opinion be on all of this quote-unquote investigative journalism, of searching for a celebrity's old tweets and the negative side of social media in general? For this documentary, I got in contact with a former lecturer of mine by the name of Henry MacDonald to discuss all of this from a journalist's perspective. I'm now joined by writer, lecturer and journalist, known for his work with The Guardian and The Observer, Henry MacDonald.
Hello Max, this is Henry MacDonald here.
Henry, we'll begin with, how familiar are you with people who make their name off of social media, such as YouTubers or influencers as they are known? Are you familiar with that world at all?
Not really. I don't let them influence me, and probably that's deliberate. You do see famous people sometimes using social media and you track them down for that, but in terms of influencers that don't influence me, no, so that wouldn't be on my agenda.
As a journalist yourself, what do you think motivates other journalists to dig back through a celebrity's social media page to try and find dirt on them that they could potentially turn into a story?
Well, I've mixed feelings about this. I mean, if you're a celebrity and you're putting up stupid shit, basically, whether it's sexist, nonsense, racist, bile, or simply about another celebrity, I think that's fair game. I mean, you're putting it out in a public domain. You know it's in the public arena. I don't think there's much you can do about it. And it's not my world. It's not the world I work in with The Guardian and The Observer. But, you know, there's a mutual trade-off between celebrities and particularly the popular media, what used to be known as the tabloids. So I think if you're posting stuff concurrently, if you're doing it at the moment, then I think that's fair game.
Well, let's say a celebrity put out tweets before they were famous, let's say when they were a teenager, that maybe contained an inappropriate word or slurs that they intended on as a joke. Would that still be correct for a journalist to turn that into a story? As we've seen that happen many times now.
Before they were famous, I think that's slightly more unethical. I think it is slightly more problematic from my viewpoint. Because I do feel that, you know, a lot of people do things when they're young that are silly and foolish. We all do that. I mean, you'll remember when I taught you guys, I think I did mention to you when we were doing online journalism that as you embark on your careers, don't tweet anything controversially political or social, and keep your opinions to yourself, and tweet for the crack, or tweet for looking for jobs, or tweet about your football team. But even that can be dangerous. For example, years and years and years ago, I saw my dream job advertised, which was to be communications director for Everton Football Club, and I thought, shall I change my life? Shall I give up reporting on Ireland and go and work for the team I love? And then I realised I had tweeted quite a few unflattering remarks about certain members of the Everton board and the leadership of the club in general. I came to the conclusion very quickly there's no chance of me getting the job, because if they mine into my tweets, they'll know what I was talking about. But I do think sometimes, I think if you're famous or a celebrity, whether that's from A to Z in terms of importance, and you're already famous and you're tweeting in parallel with your career, I think that's fair game. However, if you were young and you weren't famous, it's morally questionable. It just depends what you say. I mean, if you said something really nasty, racist or homophobic, you could argue that. But people change, people improve, people wise up, they learn. I've a contact of mine, he's also, I regard him as a friend, who's a former neo-Nazi. What does he do with his life now? Well, he campaigns against Nazis, he campaigns against racists. Now, had Twitter or Facebook or Instagram had been around when he was young, he might have posted all kinds of bilious neo-fascist diatribes. But is it fair to dig? Would it have been fair to have dug that up against him, given that he's now doing, in my opinion, good work exposing fascist groups in Britain? No, unless he had a proper right to reply. So there is a fine line.
As someone who uses Twitter quite often, do you think it's a useful tool? Have you had any standout positive or negative experiences with it?
I use Twitter. Well, I'll only give you an example of that in terms of getting questions out there, appeals for help. A colleague of mine today, Leona O'Neill, a very brilliant freelance journalist based in Derry, she'll not mind me quoting her. Leona has just put out a Twitter request for anyone who has had coronavirus in Northern Ireland and has recovered from it. Could they talk to her? And she'll probably get a few people coming forward. That's what I've used it to as well. I've also used it to promote my books. I use it mainly to promote my books. Occasionally to give off about Everton Football Club or Cliftonville Football Club, my local team. But generally I promote the novel. Indeed, I'm running extracts of the novel in recordings and tweeting them at the minute. So it's a useful tool. It's a useful tool for research. And it can be. That's the positive side. Negative, well, it depends if you let it be negative. I think, wine o'clock is important. Don't be near a computer. Don't write nasty things about future employers like the Everton Football Club board. You're ended the lesson. You do get nasty comments. I think the most obnoxious thing on Twitter are people the trolls who leave abuse but don't have proper names, can't be identified. The people that hide behind pseudonyms and fake names. I think I basically think they're the scum of the internet. And my policy is not to engage with anyone who is hiding behind a pseudonym, a nom de plume, whatever. I think if you want to say something online, you put your name to it, and so you can be identified and stand up in the public square. It's cowardly not to do that.
Earlier on in this documentary, I questioned whether journalists digging through a celebrity's Twitter account to try and find a story could be compared to phone hacking scandals that we've seen happen throughout the last 3 decades, the likes that got the News of the World newspaper shut down. Is this the same kind of unethical journalism?
News of the World. Let me say something about the News of the World first. I think it's a tragedy that it closed. I think the News of the World shouldn't have been hacking. Phone hacking was wrong. But I think it was wrong of Rupert Murdoch to close the News of the World, because it also did some fine journalism. And that might sound surprising coming from someone who's not really worked in tabloids. Phone hacking is not research. It's not ethical. It is absolutely wrong. I don't think you can compare tapping phones to digging through social media, because no one who's making a phone call to someone else has agreed that a third party, whether it's a newspaper journalist or whoever, should have access to that conversation. That's the difference. In social media, you really do know what you're getting into. You've made a choice to bury yourself publicly online. Hacking is the interference in private conversation, so it's unacceptable.
So finally, Henry, for this documentary, I got in contact with an Irish girl who makes YouTube videos about her daily life, and the videos themselves make her a small profit based off of ad revenue. But she said no to my interview request as her parents didn't want her to do one. Do you think most parents are aware about what their children put out on the internet these days?
Well, as a parent of 3 children, well, they're growing up now to a certain extent. One is 15, one is 19, and one is 23. But do I know what they're up on the internet? No, I don't. I can see them online occasionally. Most parents I don't think are aware. I think they'd like to be, but they're not. That's my view. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd say for journalists, I think overall, let's not fetishize things like Twitter and make them out to be something they're not. I think sometimes some media godheads have tried to make out that Twitter is a quotes the game changer. It's only yes and no. At the end of the day, writing, the ability to stay to write stories or construct stories with pictures in broadcasting, or indeed in audio bites in radio broadcasting, or they now call it podcasting. It's the ability to do this, the ability to lead on from the words once upon a time, to tell a story. That will not change. Twitter won't change that, Facebook won't change it. Look upon them as delivery systems. But the story, like the song, remains the same.
To conclude, despite the amazing and world-changing possibilities that it offers, social media as a whole can be a world of destruction, pain, and evil that can tear down a career as quickly as it creates another. It's a tool that should be used respectfully, and I urge you all to never underestimate it, positively or negatively. Thank you for listening.